Hi guys! So last spring I did what is quite a popular video here on BookTube, and that is my 5-star reading predictions. So I told you about, I think it was around 10 books that I hadn't read but wanted to read and was pretty sure I was going to give 5 stars. For whatever reason I thought I was going to absolutely love them, they'd be new favourites. Now obviously I hope to love most of the books I read, but at the same time I quite often go into some books expecting it not to be perfect, whereas I guess I thought these books would be perfect. And since it's been almost a year, I thought it would be fun to come back to you, look back on that video, see how many of those books I've read, have I read any, have I read them all, and did I give them 5 stars? So share with you my thoughts on the books now that I have read them, if I have. So without further ado, I am going to get my laptop open, I'm going to put that video on, and I'm going to find out what I said I would give 5 stars last year. Hi guys, so I'm here today to do a video all about books I'm sure I'm gonna love, aka 5-star book predictions. We're the same earrings. What are the chances? So the premise I think is pretty clear, therefore I'm going to jump straight into the books. Now the first book on my 5-star predictions list is Human Acts by Han Kang. I haven't read that one, so we're not off to a great start. Let's fast forward and find a book that I have read, because that is not one of them. The next book I know exactly what I'm going to be reading though, and that is Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson, because this is the July-August read for the Feminist Orchestra Book Club. So, as stated in the video, because it was for the book club, I did read it, I fulfilled that book club challenge, and I did give it 5 stars! I'm so glad that this one lived up to my expectations, because it's one of those books I'd heard so many things about that I was going into it with, you know, high expectations, and sometimes hype can hurt a book, but it did not for this one. In fact, this exceeded my 5-star predictions. If I could give a book 6 stars without just destroying the whole meaning of the 5-star system, I would. It was a perfect book. One of my new favourite books of all time, not just of last year. So I'm so pleased that that one did live up to my expectations. It is a semi-autobiographical novel, the first that Jeanette Winterson published, about a young girl called Jeanette living in northern England in the 1950s in a Pentecostal, extremely religious household, particularly regarding her mother, although her parents are her adopted parents, and she realises as she gets older that she is attracted to other women, that she is gay, and it's about her experience becoming herself in this environment. It's not just about coming out, although she meets with a lot of rejection and dismissal from her church and her family and her community, which is incredibly difficult for her. But it's about very much her self-assurance and about finding a way to fit into the world where she can be who she truly is, and it is stunning. The writing is stunning. There's little drips and drabs of magic realism in there, which I think just help to emphasise some of the themes of the story, and it's all just done perfectly. Jeanette Winterson is clearly one of those writers who was just ploughing out perfect books since day one, and this is, like I said, one of my new favourites. So yes, 1 for 1 on books I've read. So the next book is actually the most recent book I have acquired, and I am so excited to have it. It is a proof copy, so it's not quite out yet, but that is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I did love this book. Oh, I'm so pleased. So this was a harrowing read, even more harrowing than I was expecting it to be. It's not a book with moments of levity or joy in it anywhere. It is a retelling of the Trojan War from the perspective of Briseis, who is a Trojan queen who is taken captive and made a slave by the Greek soldiers, and is essentially the sex slave to Achilles. And it is, like I said, it's just harrowing. It is so brutal but so incredible. It is a retelling of Greek mythology like I've never read before. It really does not shy away from the brutality of war, the experience of women during war, especially in slave warfare, where civilizations are taken as slaves, like in antiquity. And the way women are treated, and not only are they losing all of their family, all the men they love, all the men they care about, but they are then being enslaved themselves. And Oh, it's so dark, but it's so wonderful, and I actually think I would recommend this to everybody, even particularly people that are interested in classics, people that are perhaps studying classics. I think this book can really actually aid a scholar in their study of classics. It can make them think about the material they're reading from antiquity differently, and I'm so pleased that Pat Barker wrote this. I would love her to try more Greek myth retellings, which she might, maybe. And I even had the privilege of interviewing her for my podcast. So if you're interested in more of her thoughts on writing this myth retelling, I will link that interview down below, but that was equally a 5-star experience, so 2 for 2. Now the next one I feel like I'm almost cheating with, because it's a sequel of a book that I already gave 5 stars by an author whose other books I've mainly given 5 stars to, so I think this one's an almost certainty, but that is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. This is a sequel to The Diviners. I stand by that. I'm sure it's still an almost certainty, but I haven't read it, so I can't tell you. But next I thought I'd mention a couple of collections of poetry, both by poets who I naturally have read poems before by, or else I don't think I would be guessing that I'd give them 5 stars. But the first one is Plum by Holly McNish. Not read. The next one is Don't Let Me Be Lonely, an American lyric by Claudia Rankine. Have read that. So that's good, I ticked off one of the poetry collections. So I had previously read Citizen, an American lyric, I believe it has the same subheading, I could be wrong about that, by Claudia Rankine, and had given it 5 stars. It was one of my favourite poetry collections, still is one of my favourite poetry collections. I thought it was incredible and unique and important and impactful, and yes, loved it. So I was pretty sure I was going to love her other poetry. This, however, is an earlier collection, so Don't Let Me Be Lonely came out before Citizen, and perhaps for that reason it wasn't a 5-star, but it was a 4-star. So I did really enjoy Don't Let Them Be Lonely. It had a lot of the things that I loved about Citizen in it. Like I said, it's quite unique. I feel like it blends non-fiction and poetry. There's prose poetry in there as well as more traditional like verse poetry, and it explores very contemporary issues. Although I felt like some of the issues explored in Don't Let Them Be Lonely were a little bit more disparate and not necessarily of as great interest to me as they were in Citizen. I don't know, maybe they would have been if they were just different poems, but I just like felt like in comparison, because it's hard not to compare 2 books by the same author that are in a similar vein, I preferred Citizen. But like I said, I gave Don't Let Them Be Lonely 4-star. It is still incredibly well written. I would really recommend Claudia Rankine's poetry. Even if you're not much of a poetry reader, it might be someone to check out, because like I said, I think she's quite unique and I really like her style, and I think there's a lot of substance there that you can like sink your teeth into. There is explorations of racism, and Don't Let Me Be Lonely in particular explores also illness and mental health and dealing with other people's mental health and your mental health and other people being ill, etc, etc. But what is next? I then have 2 non-fiction books, and the first one is Miscegenation, The True Scale of Sexism by Laura Bates. I have read Miscegenation and I gave it 5 stars. This is going well. Miscegenation is a collection of Laura Bates' essays that had actually previously been published in newspaper columns but were being brought together, and they centred on the themes of misogyny, but specifically in the media and how the media perpetuates misogyny and sexism, following on from her other book Everyday Sexism, which is one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read, one of the best books on feminism I've ever read, would highly recommend, and equally I thought Miscegenation was great. Now I think because these are essays that were published separately, and this always happens in essay collections where the essays were previously published, there is repetition, there is certainly overlap, similar examples used in some of the essays, but in this case that didn't bother me because I just felt like it reinforced the message of the book, and just kind of emphasised the fact that this is so pervasive, this sort of sexism within the media, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. I don't think you need to have read Everyday Sexism to read this. I think both would be sort of like great unique reads in themselves. And lastly, for non-fiction, I have If They Come in the Morning, Voices of Resistance, edited by Angela Y. Davis. That's another essay collection, although on this occasion written by different people, all about the American incarceration system, and I haven't read it, although I'm still convinced I will give it 5 stars when I do get around to it. I then briefly want to mention 2 books I don't have physical copies of, which I don't fully understand, because the first one is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, which I know I brought my copy of to London. I haven't read The Chrysalis by John Wyndham, but I found my copy, so no worries, I can definitely get around to that one hopefully soon, because I love John Wyndham's science fiction writing, but no, I haven't read that. And lastly, another sequel, and that is Binti the Night Masquerade, which is the third in the Binti series by Nnedi Okorafor. I was definitely cheating with this one because I'd given Binti and its sequel, Binti Home, both 5 stars very soon before filming this video, so I then read this third novella in the series very quickly after filming this video, and it lived up to the hype. However, there was a point during it where I was furious. If it hadn't been on my Kindle, I would have chucked it across the room. I was like, what is happening? I could not believe the direction the plot was taken, but then I don't know how she does it. She just manages to absorb you back into the story and convince you that everything she does is perfect, and it all wrapped up beautifully, and it ended up being a 5-star, and I think my overreactive emotions to it midway through are just more of a sign of how much I'd grown to love the characters of this science fiction novella series and how much I loved reading about them. And this novel follows Binti. This is obviously the third book, so I can't say too much about it, but it follows Binti, who in the beginning of the first book has decided to attend University, and she will be the first person ever of her people from Earth to go to University, because her people are quite an insular community. They like to look inwards and sort of like build things, and they don't leave very often, and let alone to go to other planets, which is where University is. So she's sort of like finding the right balance of like her family and her culture and who she wants to be and new things that she wants to explore. And wow, is this series incredible. So much happens in it, yet none of it feels like crammed in or that there's not enough to get your teeth stuck into. I love them so much. So yes, another 5-star, which means I gave virtually all of the books that I predicted I'd give 5 stars and have since read 5 stars. If not, I've given them 4 stars, so not bad at all. I have been right. I love them all. I'm so pleased that I can predict my own reaction to books so well. That means I'm probably picking up books that I will like, which I think happens more than often. I like more of the books that I dislike when it comes to what I pick up to read. But yeah, that was really interesting to discover. Obviously there's 5 more books in this video. I think it's also kind of funny that I read exactly 5 out of 10. But there's 5 more that I haven't read. So let me know if you would like me to do a follow-up video to this once I have read those 5 books, and I can let you know if I was correct. And equally, if you'd like to see more 5-star predictions videos from me in the future, also happy to film those, but this was a lot of fun, so I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed filming it. I'd love to know if you have read any of the books that were mentioned in this video or the last video, and what your thoughts are, or equally if the books that you thought you would give 5 stars you did or didn't. I would love to know were you correct or not. But until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you again soon. Bye guys.